You were born in Los Rios, but you were born at this house? Not this house.
Yes,
In
here.
this house?
Yes, my father built that, and they moved me, and I was just a couple months old. They moved me from the house used to be over there where the cars are parked, the porch facing that way, and then he built this one, and then my mother said I was just a few months old.
Where was the guy who lived here who did that your mom used to take food to?
Oh, the man that owned the old adobe, yes, originally. There was an adobe here that went clear across. And
It was your grandmother.
it was my grandmother that said that. Yes, he was a bachelor and had no one, and he raised the dogs, the racing dogs. What do you call them, dogs?
Greyhounds, maybe?
Greyhounds. Yeah, he raised them. And he had money. He had a big adobe here that went all the way across. Grandmother had a little camp in the back there. Very poor. Then she made a fire in there, and she was mad because she couldn't make the fire go. She hated that. She hated not being able to start a fire. She'd blow on it. Ashes all over the place. And then he would come jingling his coins in his pocket, gold, you know. And he said, "Oh, poor Mr. Robles, she's so poor, you know." Oh, that made her twice as mad, and she drove him off and said, "Go away, you mean old man." But my mother and her sister and their little children were sitting nearby, and she said, "They're going to grow up. They're not going to be little all their lives, and they'll look after me." But she said, "You are the poor man with all your dogs and money, jingling your coins and everything. You're the poor one because you're going to die alone. There'll be nobody to look after you." And that's what happened. He became ill and was very sick, and my grandmother used to bring him a little bowl of soup. And he apologized to her and said, "You were right. Here I am. You know, nobody comes to see me." And he died. And he left my grandmother this land.
Wow. What was his name? Do you... Feliz?
Feliz. That's the only name.
And your grandmother, too, spoke Ahashimo. She spoke the language, and she would gather acorns.
Oh, yes, we wish. Make we wish.
We wish. And you remember doing that as a little girl?
Yes, the chief and I he would gather the acorns down Ortega Highway where there are lots of oak trees and bring them home. And then, of course, she picked certain ones. Some had little holes in them where bugs would get in, I guess. And then she had stone bowls, metates, that she would put them in there, and she had the mano, her handle, and then wham, she'd head down into the nuts and break them up. And as soon as she finished that, the chief and I then had to get the meats out of the nuts, throw the shells away and separate them. Then she got the other bowl made of stone, very heavy, and mano, what they call mano, I think. Wham, wham, hit them and break them up. And then there was another stone thing that had little legs that were tall here, and then shorter down there so that the stone kind of slanted this way. And then she had the mano again, and then she grind the nuts. See, got bitter as heck. I know, we'd break them up and taste them, you know, and God, your tongue would just shrivel up because they were so bitter. And then she'd start in grinding. She'd sit on the ground like that with that bowl and here between like she was washing clothes. And then it'd go through many washings. She had a screen and a cheesecloth on top of that, and then wash when she was grinding. It went on, and when she felt that was enough, then they cooked it like, there's a cereal that reminds me of it, only it's white. Cream of wheat, isn't it?
Oh, cream of wheat,
The same thing. and she'd put on the stove, and you could see it, start boiling. Oh, sure. And then they let it cool, and it would congeal, and then you could slice it. That's the way she ate it, and it was so bitter, it was so terrible. And I liked it too. She put cream and sugar in it. She would say, even the rocks are good with sugar. That was not the way to eat it, but it was good.
It's good that way.
Mm-hmm. With venison.
You get locally. They would,
or take a highway.
yeah.
The chief would always bring the venison home.
Who was the chief?
Well, he wasn't the chief. The Clarence.
Okay, right. Okay, so. When you lived here, when you grew up, Marguerite, in this area, how many people lived in San Juan, do you think? I mean, they were mostly people that you knew, though.
Oh, yes, mostly. On Los Rios Street, way over till you come to Ali Paz, I think is that road that crosses the railroad track. To the end of that, we knew people in all those houses there. And where the historical office is, that house used to be across the tracks before, and they moved it over. And the Niebles and the Rios, and then the Montanez adobe.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I didn't know Polonia, but everybody else knew.
That's where she lived, Polonia lived in.
Mm-hmm. See, heyday for me. I didn't know Polonia. I knew of her, but I didn't know her.
When you lived here too, I mean, as you grew up in Los Rios district, when you lived in this area, I mean, now a lot of people are interested in that, to discover that there are Indians here, right? That there are people of Native American descent still here. They find it really fascinating because they think that everyone was killed or died or whatever. But when you were growing up, it wasn't a very good idea. I mean, you didn't tell people you were Indian, right?
No, we didn't. We didn't. And it was more fashionable to be white. And some people made up stories that they were white. So that meant the children had to be some part white. But it was not true.
And people knew who everyone was here. I mean, they knew who was Mexicano or Indian, or right?
Mm-hmm.
So you didn't have to make a big deal on it, to talk about it, in other words.
No.
So it's only with whites and people in authority that the identity was hidden from.
That's right. You're right.
It's interesting how things change then, huh?
I'll say.
There was a lot of conflict within the family itself. However, our mother, insisted that yes, we are Indian. So let's fight a little bit, because our family was the only one who would say they were Indian.
Really?
Remember Antonio over here when he was in the library, he said, his mom said, don't go play over there with those Indians. You know? So the family, whether they felt comfortable with that or not, I'm sure at times it was not as comfortable. Most of the time it was sort of a prideful thing to say, you know what, we are Indian, and you're not going to escape that, and it worked out well for that.
Yeah. There were other people that were Indian who lived here, but they didn't declare it.
Really?
But because before you said like your grandmother spoke a Hashimum, and she still practiced some of the traditional. Certainly, and then when you were sick, your mother took you to, a healer, a traditional healer in Paula. Your grandmother, yeah. And there was at that time, I mean, Aku was alive, right?
Oh yes.
He was the captain of a sheep, a team that sheared sheep, local sheep.
Oh, that I don't know.
Did he have? What did most of the men do that lived here in terms of work?
Well, they worked out in farms, and then maybe I didn't pay enough attention.
Right.
But this field here, right in here, was where they would have some years it was string beans, other years lettuce and limas, then finally orange trees that were put there. And they depended a lot on farm work and the sheep shearing. See, they used to go on the sheep shearing trips. But Aku and my grandfather made lariats for the foresters. Did I tell you about that?
No.
Well, they did. My grandfather used to make his out of horsehair. He'd get big wads of horsehair, and I remember he'd put them under his arm. And there were some instruments. I forget the name of them now. Like those long sticks, with the hole up here, and you turn them around. What? Taravilla. And Clarence, the chief, used to help my grandfather. And he'd take a little bit of horsehair and tie it around this little, they had a little hole like this, and he'd tie it around there. And then Clarence would turn it over quietly, just slowly like this until it was, you could see that hair turning around and around. And then he'd give it a big whirl, and and then he had to keep going back, and it was getting longer and longer and longer. A little narrow, about that narrow, see? And they would count with your feet how many inches to go, and then have this stick. And put one line there, Grandpa put his here. They'd start another one. And they'd make about so many little narrow ones. And then they'd get the big board, the big thing that you turn around, the taravilla, big one. And he'd tie it around again, and then it was hard because then he was turning several. And once he got going, boy, he'd turn that board over, and it was hard work. And then he kept going back and back and back, and then it made the rope really thick, kind of rough one, but beautiful. Sometimes it was black and white or brown and white, beautiful colors. Aku made his out of hide, and he would get a whole big hide. You've seen those wedding stones, those little wedding stones that you went on your hand like this? People
to sharpen knives. And,
sharpen knives, and my dad used to sharpen his to shave. And he would have a knife so sharp, it was a pocket knife, just a pocket knife, and he'd put water on the thing, sharpen it. Pretty soon, he'd get that great big hide, mind you, and start cutting at the end of it, 1/4 of an inch. Isn't that strange? No ruler, no nothing. He'd go across that hide, 1/4 of an inch. And he'd make several strips. And then he had awls. And he'd poke holes through them, and he'd start knitting that. And he'd make riatas. And those big riatas the cowboys used to.
So
yeah, it's amazing what he used to do.
And he would make them for the foresters. They would sell them. Or?
Yes. My grandfather would take him the horsehair around his ropes, and he would take the leather.
When you were little too, you had the mission. It was Father Sullivan who started. O'Sullivan who started developing. I mean, fixing the mission.
Fixing the mission. Oh, he was so proud of it. He loved to do it.
You spent time with him, and
Oh, lots of time. He'd take me by the hand and walk me across the gardens, and he said, "Here, we're going to have this. We're going to have this kind of flower here." And very. And in the back, we're going to have a school. And just think, Margarita, there's going to be sisters to teach you. Can you imagine that, sisters? And then we're going to have doves flying over, white doves, and you'll be able to feed them right out. They'll come and eat out of your hand. I couldn't wait. And he did get those doves out there, and he had the feed in the gate as you come in. They had to pay 50 cents a sack
to feed them. Huh?
Don't say I said that.
How old were you then, do you think?
Well, I wasn't going to school. No. When he told me about that school, he said he was going to build 4 grades and I could come to the school. So I must have been somewhere between the 1st and 4th grade.
4th grade.
So when he completed the schools, there were 4 grades. And guess what? I was promoted to the 5th. So I didn't get to go to school. And every year he'd add 1 year and I would pass another year, and I never did go to the schools.
There's that book that, in fact, of Capistrano, that's Sullivan's notes.
Capistrano Nights.
Capistrano Nights, and when he wrote about you Sullivan wrote about you in the book. I don't think you've seen it, but it's really where little Margarita Lobo running through the flowers on the hill.
Well, the family always teased me because I knew. I said it's chapter 4, page 27.
You knew exactly right.
I had read it so many times, and I said it's chapter 4. I think when we got a book, I said, be sure and read chapter 4, page 27. Yes, no, he spoke of how beautiful the hills were all around here, same hills. But really, where the old high school is, right past the high school, there was a big hill there. And in the spring, there'd be all these blue flowers, long steps. And we'd cut them one by one. I remember we'd cut them like this and then pull them down like this. Like swan, pull it down. So it was even in here, but stems sometimes different.
Right.
But we'd bring them that way home. We'd walk along the railroad track, or it was on the highway best. We'd walk, and the people would go by and say, "Oh, be sure and stop." And you'd see the cars pull over to the right and stop, and they'd buy them from us. Not from me, they used to buy from Bernice. She had the neatest bouquet. Hers was so even and blue, and ours were hee-haws. and then there was another type of flower called Johnny Jump-Ups.
Johnny Jump-Up.
Are you familiar with it?
Yes, I am, yeah.
They're just like violets, only they're yellow.
Yeah.
The hills were covered with that. And the others were a long stem with a little blue, I don't know what we called them bluebells, we didn't know the correct names. But we did that every spring. These 2 girls that lived across on the other side of that pepper tree is gone now. And they'd buy from Bernice because she had the prettiest bouquet. And those are the hills that Father was referring to in his book, that the hills were full of flowers in the spring and everything. And if you don't believe me, he said, ask Margarita, John Lobo's little girl. And she will tell you the reason they were in color was because the Virgin Mary had walked there at one time. That's what I told him. But it wasn't true.
It's a good story, though. I like this story.
I know it.
Why do you think Clarence Lobo, Chief, why do you think he became so strong in terms of wanting to work for the for the people?
Oh, because my mother served in the club, you might say, for years. She was secretary to the Indian thing. And
That's the one in Riverside, the Federation.
Yeah, it was a federation.
So that would have been with Marcus Forrester then,
Yes.
who was out there.
Yes.
Not the local one, but affiliated with the side.
So there was a local membership, a club here. I remember reading, and so
Forster was the head.
right, and he used to have get-togethers, fiestas, or meetings. People would come. Did they meet at his house behind the
Yes.
mission?
Yes. The house was in the corner, and then there was a big area, and they had like a little canvas thing over them, and they would sit under there. Not in the same property.
And so Clarence Scott, you think, as going with your mother to
Yes,
these?
they used to discuss it many times, and my mother said, they never got to first base with it. And I think from that, Clarence decided he could do something.
Can you talk a little bit about how you ended up at Sherman Indian School in Riverside?
Well, yes, these same girls I'm talking about. Some of the local girls were going to another Indian school in Banning.
Any right?
Yeah, they went there, and I went to go to Banning, but the Rios went to Banning. Dan went, Juanita went to Banning, and we had nowhere else to go. We wanted to go the same as everybody else. My mother didn't want me to go. My dad didn't want me to go either. But Mr. Forster, his name is Marco Forster, was the one that took care of all these people that wanted to go. He'd take the papers and fill them out for them. And you had to be a quarter, I think, or more to go in. And at that time, I don't think my mother even knew what degree we were. But anyway, my father didn't want to go, but my grandmother thought it was nice. Of course, she would. And that's how I ended up over there. Oh, I'll tell you another reason why I wanted to go to Sherman was because of Jim Thorpe.
Oh, the athlete.
I had heard so much about him. And he used to come to Sherman to visit. And he'd come to a football game. The girls would all just get all gussied up because Jim Thorpe was coming.
And you went there for
A couple of years.
a couple of years or two. Yeah. You liked it though.
Oh, yes, I liked it. And they said you're responsible for your own, for example, you had your own sleeping area, the sleeping porch, and you had to keep it neat and nice. And you had certain chores to do. They were very strict about being out to getting in line. You had to get in line for everything, to eat, to go to school, to come back, and roll call. A, B, C, D. So, and if you were late, you would get a demerit. And I said, what, to get a demerit? It's nothing. If you got one demerit there, you would never get another one again. Because I had to scrub on my hands and knees a whole music hall, whole music room, by myself, no help, on my hands and knees scrubbing. And the terrible yellow soap that's got lye in it and everything, so the floors would be just shiny. I never got another demerit again for 2 years. When you heard that bell, you're out the door.
I can't remember. Why did you leave, or why you only went 2 years?
Well, there was an epidemic of impetigo, And you know how Padago goes. They went through that building so fast, it was everywhere. And I had it all the way up my legs, clear up into their big sores, and they wept and everything, and nothing seemed to touch it. Well, they put medicine, and we have a regular hospital, girls, nurses training, and a wonderful home ec building. But nothing helped, and I hated all that stuff. And I didn't tell my mother because she'd say, I told you not to go. And my dad was the one that said, well, let's go get her. And they picked me up. And they took me to the reservation, to Paula, where my grandmother had a relative, a nephew or some relative that's a medicine man. And it was hot, and my father had a coupe in those days. And we had to drive all the way down to Paula and into the hills, way up, and there was this little tiny house, no bigger than that. And there was this medicine, and I was so scared of him because he had these piercing eyes, And I had to tell him what happened. And all of a sudden, I remember having one sore, and I scratched it, and it went all over. The whole building said they had it. And he laughed. I think he could see my problem, and he said, oh, don't worry, don't be afraid. I think I was afraid of him because he had those piercing eyes of anyone I've ever seen. So he came to me, and he put a purple cloth over my head. Oh, I wanted to get up and run because I didn't know what he was going to do. But all he did was put his hands on my head and mumbled some prayers. And that was it.
Were the prayers in Spanish or were they?
No, in Indian, some of the language. And that was it. I came home and got well. Not from Paula over here, but short days later.
Did other people? I think you told me, but did other people went to see him too?
Oh yeah,
right?
sure. The ones that knew of him would go.
Because I don't think there at that time I don't think there was. Maybe there was one doctor in San Juan. I think.
No doctor.
No doctor.
No doctor in San Juan. You had to go to Santa Ana.
How long did it take to go to Santa Ana?
Well, in my mother's day, it took them. They left here at 5 o'clock in the morning, and they were in El Toro at noon.
Wow, because it's dirt road.
Not only that, but they had a wagon, and they had relatives in Santa Ana. And my mother was just a little girl. And when they went to visit, they made that one visit do for a long time because no telling when they'd go again. So they'd save corn and beans and things like that to take with them for relatives. And then my grandmother would pack a lunch, took her from here to Santa Ana. My mother and her sister and I had to sit on sacks of these things that they put them in sacks and they put them in the wagon, and they sat on top of that. And they'd start out at 5 o'clock in the morning, and at noon they were in El Toro, and there was an old rickety bridge that you had to cross a little brook. And every time, I remember going over that bridge, because it was there a long, long time, and you'd go over it, and you'd go, you're sorry about getting across. Oh gosh, you're taking my bone.
So you were worried it was going to break?
And so they'd stop right there, and they'd take their lunch out and spread it down by the river, and have their lunch and take a nap maybe. And then they get in the wagon, and they were in Santa Ana by about 6 o'clock in the evening. 5 o'clock in the morning start out. And so my mother was always amazed how the boys could go to Santa Ana and back. And one, even in the morning before noon, they were back here. Yeah. Oh, and it says, how do they do that? Time marches on. But then when I went to school, I realized in history and all that we were the first Americans.
What do you think? Why do you? I mean, how do you feel? I mean, I know how you feel, but for the camera though too, for the record. But how do you feel about the fact that the tribe hasn't been recognized? I mean, the relationship of this community to the government.
Well, I have very negative thoughts about that. After all these years of struggle, and my mother worked very hard at it. Somebody is not paying attention to what's going on.
If you could, I mean, if you could actually talk to someone in the government, I mean, face to face, for the Bureau of Indian Affairs, I mean, and if you had an opportunity, if she came here, I mean, what would you tell her? What words would you use? How would you express it to her? Imagine she's standing right here. Imagine I'm her. What would you? I know.
Well, I'd want to know why. If you give me a good explanation, that's all I want. But you're fooling around, or do it like the chief did. He put on his headgear and he went over there and gave him the dickens.
Mm-hmm. So maybe the tribe should organize and take over the post office.
And go over there and say, look, we've fooled around enough. And we've been patient.
What are you thinking? Go ahead. No, tell us. Come on. I saw it on your face. Tell us. What were you going to say? What were you thinking?
It's not printable.
That's okay.
Well, I think everybody is impatient about the whole thing. You know, some of them that have families and have children, like Junie, she's thinking of her children, saying at least I would like to see my kids have a piece of a rock, you know, as far as land is concerned. But I'm by myself, so it doesn't matter.
No.
I'm not that cute.
No, you're very, very. You're cute, Margaret.
Oh, he says so too.
I know. I know. That time you rode in that car with me, I saw the little white car with the top down, and someone saw us, and they wanted to know who was that beautiful woman you were driving on the road with. Yeah. So I said, a secret, I'm not telling.
Yeah, I'll never tell.
When we were talking, we were coming up, I found, I'll have to, I don't know if Wick showed it to you, but I'll have to bring it to you and show you, but it's got your name in that telephone book. And I think it was 1939, 1940, and but it has you listed as like I said, a waitress at Mona's Cafe in Laguna Beach, but you were playing guitar there.
Yes.
Was it, I mean, were you singing in English or in Spanish or in both? Mixed? Where did you learn to play guitar and sing?
Well, you know, this is my story. There was a porch in front of that house there, long porch. And I was 10 years old when I had my first sister. Oh, wasn't that something? I had all these boys all the time. There was the Chief, Robert, Richard, Arnold, and two sisters came way. I was too old to be a playmate, but I was old enough to be a babysitter, which interfered with my playing a lot. Was to go to that house over there. There was a big pepper tree, and we played in that pepper tree. So when my sister came, I no longer could play in the pepper tree because she was crying, or I had to put her to sleep, or change the baby, give her bottle. And she was a terrible kid. Evelyn.
Yeah.
You knew Evelyn,
Yeah.
didn't you?
Yes, I did.
She used to cry a lot. That's why she was a good singer. She was sharpening her voice. And that was where I started to play a guitar. I heard a lady playing a guitar, and the building is still there, and I'm sure the chair is still there where that lady was sitting. And she had a ukulele, playing ukulele lady, playing, and she was not doing. Didn't know what it was, but it wasn't right. She played. This is the way a ukulele lady went. And she kept the same chord. That same chord C. She didn't change. She played the whole tune, and that's it. She didn't move her hand. I didn't know what it was, but I knew it wasn't right. My ear said she should find something else to play in the different note. And I said, I bet I could play one of those if I had one, but I don't have one. So my grandmother said, "Right to your uncle." I had an uncle that he would do anything for us. He even made a baseball for Wick from a little tiny thing like that. I don't know what material he used, but he made a little ball and kept going on and on till he made a baseball. He used to play catch. And so sure enough, my grandmother, I told my grandmother about this lady playing up there, and she said, "Well, write to your uncle." And I wrote a letter, and he sent me a brand new little ukulele. Opened the package, and there it was. Right away, I played the ukulele lady. And then I looked at the book where it says to put your finger, and sure, it worked out all right. Finally. See, and that was the beginning. But then Evelyn came, and then I couldn't play as long as I wanted to. They had her in a playpen there in the porch, and my mother had a bunch of flowers in the front. And sometimes I'd get so busy wondering where I was going to put my fingers in this thing. She'd fall over the side because it had slats, around. My dad made the playpen, and she'd use it as a ladder. She'd climb over there, and fall into the tulips, and. My dad said the next time she falls out of that playpen, I'm going to take that guitar away from you. That was the worst thing. So this one day, that's what happened. She fell over the side, and I knew that was my last time. So and my sister went down into the tulips again, and she let out this big yell, and my dad was home that day. He came out, he opened the door and put his foot right on my ukulele. That was it. My grandmother said, "That's all right. You write to your uncle again." He was saying, but he never did. He said if you learn to play well, he said, I will send a really good one. Because my uncle believed in buying good quality things. I remember he had cufflinks, they were gold. And he had gold pieces that he carried around, jingled around in his pockets. But he never did, I don't know why he never did send another one. But that was the beginning.
And then when did you get?
Then I graduated to a guitar, I said, the last 4 strings of this guitar is the same as that ukulele. And they're tuned alike. Well, that was no problem. All I had to learn was the bass notes.
So you didn't have formal education?
No.
Mm-hmm. But then who did you play with? You played with, there were a couple of people here in San Juan that you played with, right?
Oh, yes, I played in a group sometimes. It was no big deal because they didn't play anything like Strauss or anything.
Right.
It's just the usual local things.
Well, how'd you get the Monas then to play, to entertain?
Well, because Wick was born by now, and he was just a little baby, and every day I would take him for a walk from here to the railroad track, back. That would get him away from my 2 sisters and the hubbub of breakfast, and nobody was scolding. So. take for a walk. And the times were bad. Times were bad. That was during Depression time. And the family, you know, that went to Sherman. And then I went. They lived right over next to that house. And things were so bad that the girl, somebody referred a lady to this family that they needed work because their father used to go on this sheep sharing, but he'd forget to send money to the family. So the lady, we were going for this walk, and I saw a pretty blue car coming over the railroad track. And you know, I didn't see any pretty cars going on this street. Pretty car, and a nice lady. She had a couple of children with her. And she asked me if I knew Bernice. And, oh yes, I said, I do. Well, she was supposed to meet me here at this time. So I ran over there, you know, to tell them this nice lady in a pretty car was there looking for Bernice. And her mother said, well, she's asleep. It was almost noon. She's asleep. Oh, all right. So I came and told the lady that she was asleep. Well, she said, would you kindly tell her that I'll be coming back tomorrow? So I did that. The next day, Wake and I were going down the street for a walk, and here comes the lady with the car, and she was still in bed. She knew that the lady was coming at 10:30 or 10 or something, and she was still sleeping. So the lady got a little perturbed. She said, well, why don't you come with me? Well, I said, I don't know. I'll have to ask my mother because she's so busy with the children. So my mother said, go. Times were bad. So I did. That's how I ended up. I went and took care of children. I used to get them up in the morning, feed them, and that, take them to the beach. And her husband was the Navy officer, and he'd come home some weekends. Sometimes he'd bring a bunch of other officers, and they would have the bestest parties, you know. And they'd end up at Mona's. Mona's was a very popular place, and so one day they had a music teacher to give piano lessons to the little girl, and it turned out that she was giving Evelyn music lessons here. And so, she said, well, I know her sister, you know, I give lessons to her sister. So, and they were very high. They'd had a few cocktails, and they were going out to Mona's, and they were so gay, you know. And one of them said, let's bring Margarita with us too. And they said, all right, you know. The mom didn't care. I don't remember who they left to take care of the kids. It would be all men. And then this music teacher said, well, Margarita can sing and play and all this. So they asked me to sing, and everybody clapped. They liked what I was doing. And so Mona said, I want her. And the lady said, well, you can't have her because she's mine. You know, think so. Well, you can't have her anyway because she's not 21. And Mona said, that's all right, I'll wait. And you know, she did. She waited another year, and then she came to get me, and they had their words, but I ended up going to Mona's. So it was fun.
So you were just a teenager then when you were playing at Mona's?
Well, let's see, I was just 21.
Just 21.
Mm-hmm.
And how long did you play there?
Oh, a couple of years, I think. Maybe more. But it was fun. I met all the movie stars, and